Welcome back, everybody, to the Fantasy Golf Bag Podcast. This is a special Up and Down Series episode, State of the Game. We're going to cover a couple of hot topics from the 2019 season, look ahead a little bit to the 2020 season and beyond for the game of golf. We got a couple special guests, which I hope you'll enjoy. And, of course, the Tour Championship, only 30 men in the field. Probably only going to have some showdown contests. So if that does change, we'll have some content for sure. But thought this was a great opportunity to kind of break the mold a bit, get an up and down show back online for you, and cover the state of the game. Let's see how kind of things have evolved in 2019 and what's going to change for the future and what we see changing for the future for the better or worse. So without further ado, hope you enjoy this Up and Down Series podcast, State of the Game. Welcome back, everybody, to the Fantasy Golf Bag Podcast. I'm your host, Richey, and we will be diving into the State of the Game, a special Up and Down Series podcast this week with a limited field for the Tour Championship. Figured this would be the best opportunity for us to kind of reevaluate the 2019 year, some of the new rules, some of the hot topics of late, and I got two special guests to help us dive through these topics. So first one I'll introduce is Miss Samantha Marks. She works for the Golf Channel digital team. You might see her videos every week or so on the Golf Pick'em Expert Picks. She played at Arkansas, so she's a talented player, and she also played the 2012 U.S. Women's Open. So I'll go ahead and kind of open it up to Samantha. How's everything going for you?
Hey, great. How are you? That was a great introduction.
Awesome. Yeah, I did my homework, trying to make sure I don't miss anything. I'm sure the first time I had Brian on, I missed about 10 things. So happy to have you on board this week.
Yeah, glad to be here. I love talking about this kind of stuff, and I've had the chance to do a few of these, and just getting to talk about this kind of stuff and being in the golf space again is really fun. So I appreciate you having me on. Yeah,
absolutely. This will be a good kind of different perspectives from people that previously played. Now we kind of get the media side of it, and now also someone that still plays. So the second guest for this evening will be Brian Richey. Brian finished 79th on the Korn Ferry Tour points list. I assume that's the final number. Brian, if I missed that, my bad. He turned pro back in 2010, and 2017 he qualified for the Korn Ferry Tour via the Latino America Tour, finishing third on the money list. Played full season 2018. Full season 2019, just missed out, but we'll be going back to the final stage of Q School. So Brian, man, appreciate you joining us again.
Yeah, anytime. Always love talking a little bit of golf.
Yeah, definitely. So let's go ahead and roll into it. We got a lot of topics to cover. We'll try to keep this as concise but as informative as possible. So the first one, I'll kind of open it up to Brian, and then I'll let Sam kind of hop in there. The biggest hot topic of late has been pace of play. And I know, like, coming from a playing background and still competitive from time to time now, we have time pars, and there's certain rules that you have to follow within like 15 minutes of the group in front of you, et cetera, before you're even assessed a penalty. You being on the Korn Ferry Tour, I'm curious, how real is pace of play? Like, how much of a problem is it? Is there just these one-off situations with like Bryson from 2 weeks ago or last week, that you're picking out one putt that he spent 2 minutes reviewing, but it's really not a problem for the entire 4.5, 445 pace play for that round?
Yeah, I think there are certain instances that get magnified, like with social media now. Everyone out watching the tournaments on their phone, they're showing kind of the bad instances. The problem with it is no organization, USGA, obviously they have that 15-minute, what is that, between the group in front of them to finish each 9 before they're penalized or whatever. So their system's a little different than the Tour's system, but no one's really been able to figure out what's the best way to monitor it or govern it, So that's the issue. I mean, there's some guys, I would put myself probably in I'm not the fastest player. I'm probably on a little bit slower side of the middle, but I'm aware of it, and it's something I've been working on. So the problem is guys got to be aware. I mean, if you show, like, I'm sure Bryson, after he saw that video, that's why he backtracked a little bit the next day after he went on that rant. Somebody showed him, like, dude, look at this. I mean,
yeah.
I don't know. I mean, the hard part is, and they're obviously playing for a lot more money than we are on the Korn Ferry Tour, but guys are trying to do their best. But it's also not fair to your playing competitors if you're affecting their rhythm and their game as well. So I don't know. I'm curious to see. The tour said they're going to use some of their ShotLink data to kind of maybe experiment or see if they can kind of figure out where they can pick up some time in the coming years. So I'm curious to see which direction that goes.
The biggest issue I see is, like, there's so many exceptions through a round of golf. Like, picking out one particular shot, you might, like, was it Spieth, like, 2 or 3 years ago at the British Open, took him like 10 minutes to hit a shot, and you got to move people and you have all this stuff. Like, when are you going to start drawing the line between giving penalties and when not? I feel like there's always going to be some gray areas or potential gray areas. So having hard and fast rules is really tough. That's why I think that rules official basically should just be giving out penalties when they're, like, within those requirements. The ShotLink idea I thought was interesting, but I feel like if they're going to just hand it over to computers flagging people for slow play, it'll be a little bit interesting. Sam, any thoughts from you on kind of pace of play? I know you played competitively, and in college golf, I think pace of play probably runs about 5.5 hours a round. It's incredibly terrible. But even like now for fans watching golf, and they feel like it's this slow, terrible drag, that probably limits them wanting to go play golf themselves.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely agree with what Brian said. It's this age of social media where we're seeing things so differently than we're seeing them on TV. Like, I don't know about you guys, but that was a very rare instance where I've seen somebody's full routine. Like, you don't typically see that. They're going from shot to shot when the person's already standing over the golf ball. And I mean, that's how I want to watch golf. I don't want to sit here and watch him look at his greens book all day, I'd rather see more shots from other people on the course. And so it kind of becomes this weird middle ground of, okay, well, it's got to be happening to other people. He just got unlucky. Bryson just got unlucky, and that it was him that took the brunt of it. And it's good that the PGA Tour is going to do something about it, but I totally agree with your point about where's the line, because you look at something like, how the PGA Tour or the USGA redid the rules this year, and they're looking a lot more at intent. Okay, well, where's the line on that as well? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's like you have to have this whatever 45-second rule that it is once it's your turn, and there's all sorts of factors that go into that may not make that possible. Kind of like what Brian was saying, like, okay, you hit it way right, and now you're just approaching your ball and you have to move all these people. That takes 3 minutes alone. So I don't know that there's going to be a definitive, this is how it is. If you go 1 second over this second,
yeah, absolutely.
allotted time. I don't think that that's how it's going to work, because there's too many exceptions.
And I just want to jump back in. I think with professional golf, especially, there's nothing in the rules that says playing ready golf is but I just think guys need to realize, like, when you have certain instances like that where you're offline and you have extra time to play a shot. I mean, certain shots are definitely more difficult, the wind's swirling, but if you're keeping up with the group in front of you all day, those instances you'll have time to take extra time if you're playing ready golf. It's guys know. I mean, you look in front of you and you don't see the group. It's time to go. Like, hey, I'm ready, going to go. But the problem where it comes in is the repeated, very slow players. That it shouldn't be on the other two or other faster players to always be going out of turn to keep the group going. Everyone kind of has to own some responsibility and, like, all right, we got to play faster.
Yeah, that's the most frustrating thing playing, because, like, if the group is out of position, even if it's due to one player, the entire group's out of position. Everyone could get penalized. I'm sure on the Korn Ferry Tour, the PGA Tour, obviously PGA's not giving out a lot of penalties, but I assume on a lot of these other tours, they're not going to be so quick to, give out one player a penalty. They'll probably just give it to the group if they're really out of position. The same with, like, lost balls. Like, I know they reduced the time to look for a lost ball, but still, like, that alone, if that happens, hopefully it doesn't happen a lot in professional golf, but if it does happen on a lower level tour and all of a sudden you're out of position on one hole, you get a warning on 9, you're still out of position, you can never catch up for whatever reason, like that one hole cost you a penalty that could be you getting your tour card for the next developmental tour or whatever it is. There's just a lot of question marks around it, in my opinion.
I totally agree. And one of the things that, I mean, we've been having this conversation at work a lot about, because we have to write about it and stuff like that. It's just kind of always in the forefront of what's been going on in the last week or so. And it's the way that I looked at it when I was playing, and I don't know if Brian feels the same way, but I was always a quick player. And the way that I looked at it is if I was on the green and I didn't know what the putt was going to do, I'm not going to figure it out if I don't know what it is. You know what I mean? Like, it's just like, just hit it. Yeah. And that's what I felt like. It was an 8-foot putt and Bryson missed it like bad. And I was like, if you don't know what it's going to do, just go ahead and whack at it.
I mean, if you're going to miss it badly, then miss it quick, you know?
Yeah. Exactly. That's exactly how I feel about it. And so I mean, obviously these guys are playing for a lot of money, which is a good point to make in this whole conversation. It's not like they're playing for a $5, round of golf on the weekends, but there's got to be some kind of line drawn.
As much as I've had a couple of discussions at different times with some rules officials, just because I'm way faster now than I was, but I'm just trying to gather information. And it's funny, like some of them will say, it's amazing, like guys, when they say you're on the clock and they feel like they're hitting faster and they're kind of running to catch up for a couple holes. The officials will sit there and tell you, because they do it all the time. They're like, we hardly ever see anybody mess up, like hit a bad or make a double. Like, he's like, you'd be amazed how quick, if I'm rushing a group back in position on the clock, how good of shots they hit. They hit it in the fairway, hit the green, make the putt. Like, because he's like, but guys are worried about it being the opposite. If they feel rushed, they feel like they're going to play worse,
Yeah, and it's probably mentally too. Like, if they feel like they're rushed, then even if they don't hit a bad shot, when they do hit that one, they'll blame it on that being rushed. That's probably part of it too.
Well, that was even part of my psychology. It was like, I feel like here they come. They're going to put us on the clock. I feel like, I don't have enough time. But it's like, I know what I'm doing. I know what I've already gone through my game plan the night before. I know what clubs I'm going to, so it's really like, just hit it,
Yeah. Now, do you guys get those green reading books on the Korn Ferry Tour? Like, they go and map out all those courses too?
So, yeah. So for our tour, I don't know if the same for the PGA Tour. So Straka Golf is the one that makes those most of the time. Mm-hmm. We don't have, not every course we play has them, but I would say more than 50%, majority. So I don't really think those are an issue at all, to be honest. I mean, people have said that they think that slows play down. But, yeah, I mean, if a guy's standing on the green, walking around in circles, looking at his book the whole time, like, yeah, that's poor use of the book. I think the books are helpful because when you're in the fairway, you know where you want to putt from. And then I usually will take a quick glance at it walking up to the green. I'm not using that to, like, 100% I'm going to play my putt where that book tells me. I'm walking up to the green going, all right, I'm a little right of the hole. Take a quick glance at it. All right, this is what it says it's going to do, and then I'm going. The rest of it's all with my eyes. I'm not using it once I'm on the green. So yeah. I use them a little differently, I think, than some other guys do.
Do you think?
I think that Brian's right there, because it's not that the green reading books are an issue. It's the misuse of them, and even with pace of play, it's the same thing. If you're not reading your putt and you're jacking around until it's your turn, of course it's going to take you 2 minutes. It's going to take you longer. Right. Just like how it is if you're the first person to putt when you get onto a green, when everybody walks up to the green, it's going to take you a few seconds longer because you just got there with everybody else. So it's just it's kind of a misuse of your time and of the books. But I don't see that ban coming anytime soon. That just doesn't seem fair.
Right.
Yeah. So let me open it up to this for both of y'all. I'll start with Sam. Like, generally speaking, in kind of the history of golf, it's always been a more expensive sport and limited casual fans from playing golf because it costs money to buy clubs. It costs money to go to the golf course, have to buy special clothes, whatever it is. And with the rise of like Topgolf and these casual places that people can go hit golf balls, you know, it's kind of a fun atmosphere. They can drink, they have some food. Do you see any other reasons besides like pace of play that are big concerns for like the growth of golf globally for casual fans?
I mean, the growth of golf has gone so well in the last few years because of places like Topgolf. My friends who don't even play will beg me to go with them because they want to learn at least a little bit of what they're doing on the golf course. I mean, it's such a weird thing because I feel like golf was such a sport that people just wanted to put on to take a nap. And like, I relate, I get that. Like I do that too. But now that it's become more accessible, like you said, it's definitely been cool for, you know, people in the industry, people in the game like you guys to see, you know, your friends, your coworkers and people like that want to, you know, do that thing with you, even though it seems like such a distant, difficult thing, which it is. But I don't really think that the pace of play thing will really affect like the weekend golfer. They're not the one out there with Bryson when he's taking 2 minutes to hit an 8-footer. Like, and if you're acting like you are, then you need a reality check.
Yeah, the pace of play issue for them is just they're bad. Like that, like 9 times out of 10, they're shooting 100 and they're finishing out every shot. Like, just take a double bogey.
It so bothers me about weekend golfers, and I have a bunch of guy friends here who will go get drinks on a Saturday and they'll want to tell me every single shot about their round and how they're so mad that they shot 95. And I'm like, you're not good enough to be mad that you shot 95. Like, you don't practice.
Yeah.
You don't do, you know, and that's one of my biggest things is when weekend golfers get pissed about that kind of stuff. Cause I'm like, you don't have the right to get pissed about this.
How long did that take you to learn though? Like even me playing junior golf and college golf, like at a certain point I realized, why are you getting upset? Like you're going to hit bad shots, accept that fact. And how about get over it quicker or get better? Like just getting upset for hitting bad shots is probably not the right way to go about it.
Yeah. I mean, my dad and my coach growing up would always just kind of say, all right, hit it and go find it. You know, that's all you can do. And if you hit it bad, then you're going to find it. And if not, you'll drop another one. It's not the end of the world. I just have such like a different perspective on golf now that I don't play competitively anymore. Mm-hmm. And I started to gain that perspective at the end of my college career, was just like, this is so not a big deal as people make it out to be.
Yeah. Kind of same boat. When I got my amateur status back like 2 years ago, that was like the big realization was like, this is supposed to be fun. And like, I lost that desire trying to make money and it wasn't fun anymore. And that removes it. So, Brian, any thoughts from you on kind of maybe something you see on the Korn Ferry Tour that's a bigger problem than pace of play, or something else that you think could potentially be a problem in the future?
I don't necessarily see anything drastic. If you know, and one thing I was going to add on the pace of play too, like Sam said, is when they show on TV somebody doing their full routine for 2 minutes, like that's very rare. But if you actually think about 3 professionals with 3 caddies with patrons and stuff around, getting around a golf course that's set up difficult with fast greens, I mean, under 5 hours is I think that's pretty good, to be honest. So like, I think the pace of play thing will just I think it's getting blown out of proportion with these little examples. But no, I don't see practice rounds are the worst, honestly. I mean, mm-hmm. Tuesday, like if you tee off in the middle of the day, you don't even, I mean, if I've already played the course, I've already checked out by 4 holes because I'm like, why am I out here? I mean, it's people chipping all over the place on a hole that's 380 yards. It's like, I had an older caddy. It's one of our buddies, JJ. He's one of the older caddies. He always says, he's like, man, if we're hitting a hybrid and a wedge, and you're telling me we're going to be chipping on this hole, what are we doing out here?
Yeah.
We're going to play on the PGA Tour, and we're going to miss this green? No. So he's always funny. Like long par 3, par 5, chip. Spend some time around the greens. 400-yard hole. 3-wood wedge, like, why are we chipping? We're not going to miss the screen. And if we do, we're probably going home, Yeah.
Too many practice rounds have been just like kick the balls off the green and chip them. And yeah, in the course of 4 days, you're probably not going to chip, but maybe once there, hopefully less. Yeah. I mean, the average would be less. So what's the point? Yeah.
Yeah. So, but yeah, I think to be honest, like most of our rounds, I mean, if you went out and watched them, I mean, and Sam probably knows, I mean, it's an art. There's guys moving out there. Like now, certain times you have a slow player or you get behind a slow group where it stalls, but for the most part, it flows. Like it doesn't ever feel like in a tournament, at least for me, it doesn't ever feel like, oh my God, I've been out here for 7 hours. Like it really doesn't feel like that at all because everything flows pretty consistently. So
yeah.
I'm probably biased. I mean, I play, so I mean, as a viewer, I bet there's a lot more animosity towards it. So.
Yeah, and they probably don't understand it though. That's part of the concern that I have is people that are making judgments. They're not out there playing or have never played competitive golf anyways. And not to pass off like every shot should take you 2 minutes to prepare for, but the one-offs are very rare, and I don't think people realize that. So
Bryson, that 8-foot putt he had, I mean, there's really to me, there's never any excuse for that. That was ridiculous how long it took him. But like, you know, let's say you're in the rough with swirling wind over water to a tucked pin, and you don't know what kind of lie you got. I mean, it might take you a minute to pull a club, you know, and that's why just playing faster the rest of the round overall will allow you that time to take extra time on a more difficult shot.
Yeah, even like that putt that Tiger made at Torrey Pines that he got in the playoff against Rocco Media, like that was a way more difficult putt, and I'm sure he took less than a minute to even prepare for that. And Bryson's putt was seemingly meaningless. So, yeah, exactly. No excuse besides just being kind of mental, I guess, in that point in time.
Yeah, I agree.
So, like, to start the 2019 season off, we had a whole host of different rules changes and rules suggestions and stuff like that. So, I want to kind of get your thoughts real quick, Brian, on your overall perception. Obviously, the big one was flag stick being allowed in whenever putting, and some guys on tour have used it for every single putt, you know, even a tap in, which is still bothersome to me. I don't trust the flag stick being in on, you know, a 5-footer or 10-footer, but the other one was being able to forced to drop the ball at knee height. So being a player, dealing with this every single week, and probably being so used to the old rules, probably taking a while to get used to these new ones. What's your overall thoughts on some of these and what the USGA is trying to do?
Yeah, I think the flag stick was definitely them trying to kind of, hey, let's make this game faster. Where the average weekend golfer, a guy's got a 40-footer, everyone else is in the bunker raking. Guy's on the green, he's ready to putt. Now he's got to walk over and grab the flag, walk back to his 40-footer.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I think that's kind of where they were going with it, keep the flag in. I've definitely noticed as the season's gone on, it's faded. The guys that thought, oh, I'm going to use the flag all the time, it's pretty much I just still taking it out. I'll keep it in for a long putt. Like, let's say my caddy would, you know, if he's going to tend it from 50 feet, I'll just leave it in. But yeah, I want to tap in with it out. You know, I want to putt from 10 feet with it out. You know, some guys were using it early, and I mean, if it's like 3 inches, yeah, I'll tap it in with the flag in. But if it's like 1.5 feet, like I don't trust it like you. Like I don't even want to look at it like that. What was the other one you were asking?
The
about?
Drop from the knee height, like it's so weird.
Well, believe it or not, we were all pretty upset about that, just because we saw some guys get penalized early on,
Mm-hmm.
you know, for dropping where they've always dropped it. You know, we've all gotten used to it by now. I mean, I remember the first tournament in Exuma this year, I was taking a drop from taking unplayable, I think, but I had the official there with me, and I didn't drop it from shoulder height, but my first thing was when I was about to drop was, you know, my arm just went out where it always had. And then we both kind of looked at each other. We both just kind of started laughing, and then I went down to my knee. But yeah, we've gotten used to that. I think they probably should have just made it minimum of knee height, you know, above the knee, you know, maybe, you know, because if you want to drop it from shoulder height, you're actually giving yourself probably a disadvantage from the knee. So, if you're used to that, like with Richey and some of those guys that got penalized from, like, dropping from shoulder height is, in their minds, with the way they worded it and the way they changed it, was a disadvantage. So why are you penalizing him from dropping from the old rule? You know, I think they could have done a better job and just done from the knee or above, but that's just my thought.
Yeah. Any thoughts from you, Sam, on the rules? If not, we can move to the equipment topic.
No, yeah, I mean, I just agree with Brian. I don't know that it actually my only take on it really is that I don't know that it actually speeds up weekend golfer play. I'll go out and play with my parents, and one of their friends will want to keep it in all the time because they saw, Bryson and Adam Scott do it. And then one of them will want to keep it out all the time. And it just becomes this chair roulette of the pin being in and out, and it's just annoying. So
yeah, I think their intention was for it to not be that, and now it is that.
Right. Yeah. I'm kind of with y'all though. I can't get over the look of it on TV. Like picture, Justin Thomas holing this putt out with the flag in. It just doesn't seem right. It doesn't look right. It doesn't feel right to me. It doesn't feel traditional to me. And I feel like if there was any real benefit to it, I mean, yes, there's been articles out that say, oh, it'll help it go in the hole, but clearly that's not the actual 100% truth, or else everybody would be doing it.
Yeah, I agree with you there for sure.
Yeah. So another one I'll kick off to Brian first. The biggest, it probably could have fallen under a hot topic with the pace of play, but distance. Obviously, guys have gotten stronger. Technique has gotten a little bit better, but equipment has really jumped in the last 10 years or so. With the golf balls getting faster, the drivers getting a little bit faster. How real is the equipment issue on tour versus the guys getting, more fit and more advanced from an athletic standpoint? What's your take on the distance? I know you're one of the longer hitters, or you claim to be a middle, a medium length hitter, I guess, on the Korn Ferry Tour nowadays. But for a while, you were near the top of the list for driving distance. Where's it really gone in the last 5 years?
I mean, it's definitely the younger kids now coming out of college are much more athletic and stronger, and the combination of technology with TrackMan and everything is so optimal. I mean, they're having everything so tailor-made to their games. They're getting the most out of it. I think. I mean, I'm old school when it comes to kind of golf courses. I mean, I think, they're just going to keep making them longer and longer, which is just more money for more expenses for golf courses. Yeah. Firm greens, rough, and tree line will always have a place in golf because you can protect the course. That's, to me, they don't need to, but I don't know what, we don't need to have guys hitting at 400 yards, in 5 years or 10 years. I don't know.
One thing too on the kids coming into college and out of college, I think there was a transition in the 2000s with Tiger hitting it so far where kids were being brought up to hit it literally as hard as they could, and they'll figure out how to hit it straight after that. So that's why you have these guys that are literally hitting it 310, 320 on the fly, and they're hitting it good because of the equipment, they're hitting it accurate. I think it's kind of, accumulation of the athleticness, and they're being taught this hit it hard and we'll find it later.
And on top, I agree with what you said, but even to add on top of that is the ball and the drivers are more forgiving and the ball doesn't curve as much. So yeah. Why wouldn't you try to hit it as hard as you can, knowing that your driver's pretty forgiving, the ball's probably going to fly pretty straight, and the courses aren't always set up for, if you're in the rough, it might not be that bad, but some courses still are. I mean, you don't want to be out of position, but a lot of times, especially if you get any rain in the summer, no matter where you are, what part of the country, there's probably a chance of rain at some point during the week, which will soften the course up. So that just means bomb and gouge. So let's fire it up there as far as we can, and we'll probably be able to stop it on the green. So that's where the game's changing a little bit, where some strategies being taken away, which kind of sucks, especially for the golf course design. It's getting harder and harder to design a golf course that will stand the test of time.
So I'm curious, Sam, for the LPGA Tour and even women's college golf and stuff like that. We hear it so much about the big guys on the PGA Tour, and I know when Michelle Wie was having her big run, she was hitting it as far as the average guy on the PGA Tour. So they made a big deal about that versus the LPGA Tour. And some of these younger girls are actually hitting it a good distance. Has that been a big problem, do you think, on some of those other tours like the LPGA and maybe even college golf for women?
I don't think it's as noticeable, I guess, if that makes sense, because the girls on tour, sure, you look at players like Maria Fassi, which we watched at the Augusta National Women's Am, hit it a mile. Sure, that's fine. But in relation to the guys, obviously she's a girl, so she's not going to hit it as far. But it just doesn't seem as bad to people, I don't think, because she's not hitting it 400 yards, if that makes sense.
It's like the number in people's mind feels like a lot. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, but to Brian's point, if you think of a driver that he used to have, like a old hickory stick driver, those faces were so small, and the place that you could hit it on the driver face was so small. And now these drivers are massive. Like, you can get a driver and have a traditional head cover and like won't even fit in it anymore. Like the misses are so much more manageable now because there's so much more space to hit it on the face of the club, in my opinion, if we're talking about drivers. Yeah. Will wrote an article, my colleague, about that this week, saying Adam Scott said this week that the driver is the most forgivable club in the bag now. I mean, he's kind of right.
Mm-hmm. He's 100% right.
Yeah, kind of. So many guys have gone away from clubbing down off tees when they don't need to. Obviously, doglegs and such, they'll need to, but there's not a real demand on accuracy or a big improvement in accuracy by hitting 3-wood over your driver. For most of the tour players, you're actually probably better off hitting driver. It's going to be more forgiving. There's going to be less side spin because the golf ball with those drivers is going to have less spin. So it's almost an advantage to hit driver more often than hitting anything less.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, your misses are less, in my opinion, or they always were for me and the people I played with.
Yeah, there's a lot, especially with a lot of the new like strokes gain technology, and even like, you know, there's that big decade movement where he has a core strategy where basically you're taking your treble left, treble right, whatever the distance is, and the wider it is, the more you send it, you know, from OB line to either line or whatever it may be.
So kind of rolling into that category with statistics, and I'll kind of lead off with Sam. Like, a lot of these new stats have been around since like 2007, 2008 with the strokes gain data. I think this has changed the way people have thought about golf courses. So like to Brian's point, with people realizing that driver is actually an advantage, because if you hit it 40 yards further, you would have to be like 10 or 15 yards offline or in the rough to like lose an advantage over being in the fairway, 30 or 40 yards back. Where do you see like this move in statistics? Is it going to like continue to add these macro elements of guys trying to improve their golf game? Looking at stats like, hey, you miss so many putts from 4 to 6 feet, I think is really interesting. But then some of these, when they're including rough proximity, fairway, bunker proximity, like so much is dependent on the lie. And I feel like you probably toss those aside to a certain point. But I'm curious your take on some of these new advanced statistics that we're looking at every single week.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you. There is so much that goes into it, and it's kind of like the slow play thing we talked about. Like, there's just so many variables that can go into one thing. But I remember when the strokes gain stat first came out, and I quite honestly was like, I don't understand what this means. Like, strokes gained on what? Yeah. And then I kind of looked into it. I mean, obviously it makes sense now, but it's so interesting because you can so easily relate the player's performance to the rest of the field, which is really interesting. I don't know how they do it, but it also breaks it up into those different categories, or, the aspects of the game, and not just the score. It's not just, your greens in regulation, your fairways hit, and your putts made. Mm-hmm. Like back when I played, that's pretty much all that we kept track of. Like, okay, you hit 6 fairways today. Like, all right, you probably need to spend some time on the range. You hit, you made 28 putts, like, all right, you're putting okay. So it's very interesting to me, especially when a guy goes, from playing really poorly one day to really well the next day, how that can vary.
Yeah, for sure. So I think, Brian, you use some of this stuff on the Korn Ferry Tour, if that's correct. They provide this after each tournament or after every round. But how has this kind of played a role into your golf game, and maybe the last couple of years when this has been more and more popular?
Yeah, we don't on ours. We get more of like what Max, what Sam was talking about. It's like the fairway, green, 1 putt, bunkers. That's it. And then so we have to kind of do our own if we want to do a little bit more extensive. So I've started to use the Decade app, which is kind of the strokes gain everything. This year, and it's like you said, there's a lot of things I really like narrow in and focus on, but some of the stuff it's just like I don't even know what kind of lie did I have there,
Yeah.
But yeah, I was in the rough. I was 80 yards out, but I was under a tree, or I was short-sided, so I played away from the hole.
Yeah,
stuff like that. So, but yeah, it's definitely. I think overall, it's definitely an advantage. It shows you a lot of information, so you can do with it what you please, and use it for whatever you think you need to work on. So it's definitely helped me over the last couple of years to narrow in my weaknesses and my strengths. It helps you. Hey, maybe I'm not as good. Maybe I'm not as good when I lay it up on a par 5, even if I'm in the rough. Like where you think the high percentage play is to put it in the fairway of the wedge. Yeah, maybe I feel like I'm hitting. That is my strength. But then when you look at the numbers, like sending it up by the green and hitting a bad shot a bad pitch out of the rough to 12 feet, not bad. That's a pretty good wedge shot from 90 yards. Stuff like that. So getting to dive into some of that. I mean, I still think it'll take. I'm still getting used to it, kind of how to use it and what to focus on and what to kind of throw out. So I think, but it's all good. I don't think there's any bad coming from it.
That's interesting. You're kind of going out of your way to use it. Like the guys on tour obviously are provided it, but then like you've seen a benefit, or your coach or somebody has said, by documenting these rounds and seeing your strokes gained in different categories, it at least gives you extra metrics to identify a weakness or something like that week to week.
Sure.
How often, I'm curious now before we go into this final topic, but that was a big kind of point of contention, I guess, with a lot of people in the industry when the proximity stat became more prevalent with irons from the fairway, because I'm curious your take on this, but I don't think guys, when you got pin placements that are 2 or 3 steps off the edge of the green, they're not going at every single pin. So like when you're measuring a proximity to a target that's not their target, I feel like that could be misleading. So maybe down in the future, I know guys on TV covers, the caddies will give out their club for the TV camera so that they know they can give the audience what club they're hitting from a certain distance. But maybe like in the future, they'll be able to provide, somehow I was actually aiming 25 feet right of the hole. I hit it 23 feet. Like, I was actually at a proximity of 2.5 feet from my target. I'm not sure how they can break that down, but I'm curious your take playing competitive golf, and I'm sure you see some of these pin placements. How often do you think you're actually quote unquote pin hunting versus playing away from the pin?
Yeah, that's a very good point that I even need to probably look more into when I'm looking through my own stats. I mean, there's every round, out of 18 hole locations, we're going to have several that are 4 off the side, with a couple other that are 3,
Mm-hmm.
It just, it obviously depends on the course and the conditions, if there's been any rain, but I mean, even on days where you feel like you have your game, I mean, I'm still probably always trying to start the ball wide side of the pin, the proper side, the plus side, and then maybe working it towards the flag. Or there's certain times when if something's 3 or 4 off the side, but that side's below the hole, then the short side's the better side because you're chipping from below the hole.
Right.
If you bail 60 feet in the middle of the green, you've got a really tough putt. But if you just barely miss in the rough or the bunker, you can hold that bunker shot or hold that chip easier than that putt, or even get it down in 2 easier. So, yeah, there's certain. I mean, I would say I'm probably going, if I'm in the fairway every hole, so that'd be 18 times I'm able to go at the flag. I'm probably only starting 4 or 5 around at the flag,
Yeah.
With the rest of them to anywhere from 2 to 6 to 7 yards on the fat side, maybe trying to work it either way. But yeah, I mean, a 25-foot putt every hole is pretty good for most of no matter what distance. So
right.
That's kind of the way that I play. So, and I'm a little older than a lot of the guys I'm playing with now that play a little differently. But
yeah, it seems like they're always pin hunting.
Yeah.
Sam, do you have any thoughts on kind of the strokes gained and these ideas of guys using stats maybe incorrectly? Like they're not actually trying to do what you think the stat is saying they're trying to do.
I don't think I'm educated enough in what the guys are doing on tour to really have an opinion on that, to be honest.
Okay. Yeah, no problem. No, I don't think anyone has an exact science down on, what's valuable and what's not, but it is interesting hearing, someone hits it 12 feet from 175 yards on average. Like, what does that really mean? Like, did they only hit 2 shots and one was really far and one was like to an inch? And like, there's a lot of different variables.
Yeah, how many of those out of 10 shots are they aiming at the flag? Probably 2, maybe 3.
Right. Yeah. So, well, how about they're going for the fat of the green and they push it or something like that, end up a foot. They got lucky because they were playing smart, and now it looks like, man, they are great from 150 yards because they hit it a foot that one time. So there's a lot of variables, I think, that haven't been kind of fine-tuned, I guess. It's interesting to see. I think strokes gained is pretty good from the general. You get scored from the fairway, you get scored from the rough, the sand, a little bit differently. But still, you have those exceptions of bad lies. You're in the face of a bunker, you have to go out sideways. Like, now you have a proximity number of 150 yards from 170 yards. Like, it's a lot of weird stuff that can go on. So the last piece that I'm going to get into is kind of going to be around PGA Tour fan engagement. So I'll kind of open it up to Sam first, and I'll kind of hit all of these all at once and kind of give me your overall thoughts. So obviously in this last year, we had the U.S. legalized sports betting, and that's been a very, like, I think every major publication I've seen has talked about the rise in golf betting in the past year. Like, you get pretty good odds, like you're picking one player out of 150, like it's not just a tennis match where you're picking one of 2 guys. So the odds are more appealing, I think, to casual fans. Obviously, DraftKings just got a deal with the PGA Tour about 2 or 3 weeks ago, about 2 weeks ago, I guess. So that's probably gained some interest from a lot of casual fans, maybe playing fantasy golf or fantasy players getting into golf now. And then obviously the PGA Tour Live has been big for the media coverage, where, like we talked about the Bryson fiasco, that wouldn't have been possible a couple years ago when we were just watching station kind of standard TV coverage. Now we get to follow 1 or 2 featured groups for every single shot throughout the morning. So I'm curious, like, out of these different topics, or maybe something I missed, where do you see this kind of playing a role with fan engagement? Do you think, the PGA Tour is going to start moving away from their traditional mindsets of, this is just golf, this is just the golf coverage, or will maybe they get into customized feeds and, like, the fantasy stuff becomes more prevalent?
I think it's an interesting point that you made, kind of how the fan engagement is up. Well, with cool things like PGA Tour Live, you look at the Masters app. You guys remember that this year, how cool it was that you could see every single shot from everywhere. And that really can't be that difficult to figure out. Why more tournaments aren't doing it. Why the USGA isn't doing it, I don't know. That kind of stuff is what's going to grow the game and what's going to make people want to watch and play and engage with stuff like sports betting. I'm not a huge fantasy golf person. I do it, but I don't really do it with any strategy. I tweeted one time that it was like I picked the most attractive player, and then if it's a toss-up, I just pick the one with the most facial hair. So like that's kind of the way that I go about it. But it's a huge talking point. People that I know who don't even know really how to play golf are playing it, and it's become a big part of, what Golf Channel does. We have the pick'em videos that I'm involved in. We have our own fantasy golf game on an NBC Sports app. We have, the picks every week that Will does. It's a big thing. And I think it's been really cool because it is a cool way to learn more about about the players that you like, if that makes sense. But the PGA Tour Live has been a really interesting and cool thing. I was talking to my friend about it the other day. I didn't realize, I guess, that it had been around as long as it has. It's been around for a couple of years now. Yeah. And I guess it's just much more prevalent this year, I think, or maybe this year and last year, where, you wake up in the morning and you can watch golf 4 or 5 hours before the coverage starts on network, which is really cool. I didn't really know about that in the last few years. So obviously they're, ramping it up. And I do think it's a really cool feature. And I'm obviously the media, we're all grateful for it because we, have a way to watch, things before the network comes on. So, yeah,
I remember back in high school, I'd get excited when you get home from school and at 3:00, the USA Network shows golf coverage for like 3 hours. That's it. And now you get to wake up in the morning and it's pretty much all day. The Masters app was actually interesting. I kind of forgot about that, but that was so awesome to see every single shot. Like, you pick out a player and they videoed every single shot they hit for the round. Like, that is awesome. Even if it wasn't live, it was within like 3 seconds of them hitting the shot. Like, that's so cool.
It was really, really cool. And then I remember, at the U.S. Open, people were, tweeting at the USGA saying, RIP the Masters app, like, we miss you. And it was just like, it set such a high standard. And so yeah, I really hope that we see more of that, at least in 2020.
Yeah. Brian, any thoughts on that? Has that kind of made its way to the Korn Ferry Tour per se? Like, sports betting for golf, I mean, it doesn't just include the PGA Tour. You can pretty much do anything with the Champions Tour, the European Tour, the Korn Ferry Tour. I think they have the Challenge Tour. Like, you could pretty much do anything. So has that kind of made its way, or any rumors of probably fans being upset with their golfer playing bad or something?
I'm probably not up to date on all of how involved it's gotten, but I will say, from my standpoint, I think it's great. I think anytime you can bring the players, whatever sport it is, with the fans, it's just going to make it better. Oh, I had him last week on my team, things like that. I've seen the Twitter banter between some PGA tours and some disappointed. I've gotten a kick out of a couple of those interactions, but no, I think it's all in good fun, and I think it's going to be great. I think it'll grow the game a little bit. I think anytime to bring the fans, like I said, closer to the players is only good for everybody involved. So.
Yeah, what's interesting, because Sam kind of alluded to this point with players, we'll say, we'll just talk about fantasy golf for a second. So with fantasy golf, generally you're going to pick 6 guys, and you're going to have to kind of go down to the weeds for your last pick, or maybe your second to last pick, and that's going to be lesser known. Like, probably 10 years ago, the average golf fan would know, Patrick Cantlay, John Rahm, Justin Rose, like these big names. They're not going to know Joel Damon. They're not going to know Sam Ryder. Like, now all of a sudden these guys are, I wouldn't say popular, but most fans now know the name. Like, they've looked them up. Mm-hmm. They know what equipment they play. They know what clothes they wear. Like, I feel like, where they went to school.
I think that's, you're hitting it right. That's exactly right. I mean, who knew who JT Poston was until a month, which he's been a great player for 3 years. If people knew how he even got on the tour, they'd be like, wow. I mean, so no, I think you're hitting it right on the head.
So let's the last segment I want to hit on real quick, and it kind of segues perfectly with people that you're not going to know for the 2020 season. I just want to quickly pick your brain, Brian, for these Korn Ferry Tour graduates. My big point is Christopher Ventura. He's obviously graduated with Matt Wolff and Hovland, or not, I guess technically didn't graduate, but he only had 8 starts on the Korn Ferry Tour and already got up to 4th on the money list and got his tour card. Like, there's a lot of good names. Scotty Scheffler won this afternoon. Robbie Shelton from Alabama. Like, a lot of these guys. Any big ones that you're really, like, maybe you played with this year that you were just like, man, this kid's got it. This kid should be on the PGA Tour quick, and he should do really well.
Well, I mean, obviously Robbie Shelton. I mean, he was an absolute menace in college. I mean, he won a bunch, and then this year he's been pretty dominant. Ventura's a little bit. He's another one. He's a beast, but he's a little bit. The reason he was under the radar was it really wasn't his limited starts wasn't really because of his play. I guess he had an emergency appendectomy right before Q School finals last year, so he didn't play well at finals. That's the only reason that he didn't get in much. And then I think he got a start in the BMW and finished 3rd, which that got him in. But it wasn't really much of a surprise. I mean, I didn't know him very well, but I think a lot of guys were saying how great of a player he was in college as well. Scheffler, I mean, he's got everything. Hits it long, great putter. I mean, really, any of these guys, any of these top 25 guys. I mean, I think Harry Higgs, people will be excited to learn about Harry Higgs. I mean, he's a funny guy. He gets along well with everybody. He's a personality. So I think the tour could use another personality like him. I think it'll be pretty special.
I'll tell you an interesting one I see on the list that maybe he's just as popular in the Korn Ferry Tour, but outside of that, Zach Blair has a serious social media following. Obviously been on the tour prior. Like, I don't know if he's like that on the Korn Ferry Tour for you guys in the locker room, but man, he has a huge following. I don't know about the Buck Club and how that's going along, or maybe that was a big part of it, but he's already got a big following before he even gets back out there.
Yeah, he's done well for himself with the Buck Club, and yeah, he definitely markets himself well. He's a good player. I remember watching him I don't even know when it was, 4 or 5 years ago when he almost won the Sony, and I was like, that was the first time I'd heard of him. I was like, wow, who's this guy? You know, he was fidgety, backing off, you know, but like kind of like the people's golfer, you know, like he's just kind of, you know, he's not real big, he doesn't hit it real far, but he just kind of grinds it out. You know, it was kind of unique to see, to learn of his story.
All right, well, I think that'll pretty much do it. I'll kick it over to Sam to give me any of your final thoughts or anything I may have missed, and of course tell the people where they can find you and your work at the Golf Channel. And again, appreciate you coming on the show.
Yeah, no, this is awesome. I really appreciate it, you guys. Final thoughts, don't really have any other than I think that the Tour Championship thing is really weird.
Yeah.
Still, I'm still getting used to it. I just saw a tweet as we're sitting here about where everybody starts on the leaderboard this week. Still getting used to that. Very strange. Yeah.
Is it JT gets a 2-shot lead? Is that what it is?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that's interesting.
Yep, it's very weird. Very weird. So pretty much nobody outside the top 5, 10 has a chance. So they should have fun. But yeah, I'm on Twitter at SamMarksGC, MARKS, and I do some fantasy golf videos for the Golf Channel on Tuesdays, so they are at golfchannel.com.
Awesome, appreciate it. And Brian, last thoughts from you, and where people can find. I know you're not the most active on social media, but we're gonna have to get you there, man. We're gonna have to get you being one of the most popular guys on the tour. So tell me any final thoughts and where they can find you.
I'm on Twitter and Instagram at brichgolf, just like my name. Yeah, final thoughts. I'm with Sam on that. This Tour Championship thing is weird. I don't know why somebody should start ahead of somebody, but I get it. It might make it easier for people to understand who's going to win. Because didn't Tiger almost win the FedEx Cup last year when he won the Tour Championship?
It was close, I think, but
somebody had to make a bogey or something?
Yeah.
They park. Yeah, I don't know. We'll see. I bet it'll play out a lot better than I think we all imagine it will. I think it'll go smoother. But yeah, I enjoyed coming on the show. Anytime you want to have me, I'm glad to talk.
Yeah, man. Well, good luck at final stage. Play good, and then we'll be seeing you next year. Hopefully have you on at some point and talk a little golf as well. So appreciate you guys both coming on the show, and have a great rest of your weekend or evening, and then enjoy the Tour Championship next week and see how JT does with the 2-shot lead. So appreciate everybody tuning in to the Fantasy Golf Bag podcast. We'll catch you next week. As always, good luck out there. See ya.